Hey, what's going on? JD here, and we have a quick recap and recon of the Muckle Yin, which is Scottish for the big one. This is race 3 in the Zracing series. It is a pitchy affair. There is a lot of climbing in this one and a lot of excitement. This route is 25.14 kilometers. There is 279 meters of elevation gain. The lead-in is 0.2 kilometers. It is on the Scotland map, and there is a few little peaks that we're going to have to deal with. So we're starting off in the streets of Glasgow. The first kilometer is part of the Glasgow crit map. So we're going to ride about 0.8 kilometers, and then we're going to take a left instead of going right, which keeps us on the crit course. But we will see the end of the crit course at the end of the race. So if you've raced the crits before, you'll already know a portion of this. So like all my races that have been in Cat C so far, my goal is to stay with the lead group for as long as possible. I just want to bury myself in the pack, benefit from the draft, and do as little work as possible. That first part is going to be relatively easy because, as I mentioned, the first part of this map is relatively downhill. There are a couple little bumps, but typically you are heading down as you head out of the city. So it's just going to be a little bit bumpy for the first little bit. Nothing to worry about until about the 2 kilometer mark. That's our first up. You will see the castle, and you're going to start to see people, if they have the feathers, firing them off as they need them as this climb picks up. Now, throughout this course, there is a fair few power-ups. Make sure to use them where you can. I wouldn't really be worried about saving anything for any particular climb. Just when you get the power-ups, use them. You just save that little bit of energy. I make a little bit of a mistake here. I was kind of hanging on to it. I wasn't 100% sure if there was a power-up station at the top of this climb, which there is, so I was just holding it a little bit late. And you'll see when we finally get up to that point, when I do pop it off, it's just kind of a little too late in the climb to really do me any good. But at this point of the race, I'm feeling all right. I'm not terribly worried about things. We see somebody popping a late feather and pushing forward. There's really no point of attacking at this point. You're not going to get away from everybody. This race, like I said, is really pitchy. It's really up and down. Unless you're going to put some phenomenal breakaway away, it's not going to do you any good. Unless you are some phenomenal breakaway rider, I wouldn't plan on attacking at this point. Just kind of stick with the pace, stick with things, save your energy, because the climbs that are coming are a little bit longer, and that's where the attacks are definitely going to happen. So you can see we're still climbing a tiny little bit. It's starting to flatten out, and I have ultimately should have popped it way earlier. Like I said, I would have saved myself a lot more energy. I still haven't done it yet. Some people are firing them off because the gate is right here. Seeing that, I popped mine off. I'm on flat ground. Lightweight is going to do me absolutely nothing at this point. After that, it's downhill for a bit. There is a nice little incline, some good time to get some recovery, but no sooner than you're going down, than you're going back up. Now you see people popping off their power-ups. I'm going to keep mine for breakaway Bray reverse, which comes up. It's a 400 meter climb, 2.2% after this one. The whole thing here is I just want to stay connected with the group, not let them get too far away. You will notice on this one, because this is a steep climb as well, that it will start getting a little bit stretched out, and you will see that some people are starting to drop off the back as well. And we haven't got to the main climb yet, guys. So this is where it's going to get really, really interesting. We're just kind of sticking there. I'm looking, making sure that there's no gaps opening up. We're going to dip down again. We're going to have a little bit of drop before we hit breakaway bay reverse. So I just want to keep in contact here. I know coming downhill that I'll be a little bit faster. I think that basically these courses are more suited for a balanced rider or somebody that is a little bit lighter versus myself that is a bigger guy. Again, you can see things a little bit stretched out. There are some people behind me. There is the main group ahead. And as we come through this flat section up to the uphill, you can see I'm already moving through the pack using my momentum. And ultimately, I'm going to use my feather on this climb just to kind of even things out. You can see there's the start of breakaway, bray, reverse. And again, some people have saved their power-ups. You're going to see them all start popping off. There we go as we pull towards the top. We're doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling not bad. We're doing about 4 or 5 watts a kilogram, probably more than I would like to do, but I am with the lead group still. We're sitting in 10th spot, 8th spot, so we're not doing too bad as of yet, so I'm fairly happy with that thus far. As we come around the corner and we see the banner, and I will pop off the feather and go through, and I think in this go-round that we get the arrow, which will be somewhat helpful. I would have preferred feathers all the way through because that's obviously where I struggle. So for the next few kilometers, you're not going to have anything terribly exciting. It's just going to be those rolly hills that we've talked about for the last 2 videos. And then we're going to come up on the roundabout and we're going to make a right-hand turn. This is your indicator that we're heading to the climb. We hit a little bit of a cobble section. And then as we come over the bridge, we should see the indicator for Secura Summit North, and it's time to go up. Now, Secura Summit North is 1.6 kilometers at 3.8%. Now we see some people popping off their power-ups. It's a little too early in the climb for that. 4%, 5%. It's going to get as high as 8% on this climb, which is much later in it. You're probably going to want to utilize it there to get the most out of that power-up. Now is probably not the time to go. Thing is, you just kind of want to hang on to that group as long as possible. So something that we can't see on the screen right now is someone who's always in this stream and racing with me is Peter. And Peter is doing something interesting. Not only is he a stronger rider than me, he is always finishing up there. He is switching bikes. He is switching to a gravel bike as an experiment to do the climbs because these climbs are all gravel. So if you take a look at the bottom corner there, you can see Peter is about 12 seconds behind. He has completed his bike change and he's going to start closing pretty fast. So the gravel bike is significantly faster on these climbs. However, unless you are going to put a good chunk of distance or maybe that you're breaking away, you're going to have a hard time if you're going to switch back. And the gravel bike is probably just a little bit too slow. But I will say that as we see Peter, he's already closed like 15 seconds. He's right on my tail right now, and he is going past, and you see him go, and he's just flying up that climb, and I'm pedaling like I'm in quicksand. So it was really cool to see that. So ultimately, you are going to absolutely fly up the climbs in comparison. The problem with this is that this course just simply doesn't have enough gravel. Even though the gravel is on both the climbs, the switches take a good 5, 6, 7 seconds. While you may make that up, ultimately, you are going to have to switch back in order to remain competitive, or you are going to have to be really on the gas to keep up with that gravel bike once you hit the tarmac. So in my ride here, you can see I'm getting dropped a little bit here. They're starting to pull away. We got 6, 7 seconds. I am just kind of going at my pace. I don't want to blow up too bad. I'm just trying to keep them in as close as I can, and hopefully I will catch them on the descent. As you can see, the percentage here heads up to that 8%. If I had a feather, this is where I would deploy it if I was in the main group or just climbing this whatsoever. It's going to save you the most energy as we kind of go through these twists and turns. Still 7 down to 3, 2 eases off a bit. And I'm saving my power up just before the summit. I'm not going fast enough here for arrow to really matter. It's going to be saved, and I'm going to pop it closer to the top. So we continue this climb, and all I'm trying to do is ultimately limit the damage done, keep that gap as small as possible. As we get to the top here, I pop the aero boost. I want to push over the top and start getting towards that descent. I'm here with another guy, and that's good because at least I'm going to have somebody to draft. But ultimately, I want to start catching up. There is a decent sized break at this point. They're almost 22, 23 seconds ahead. There are a couple stragglers in no man's land. We've got a guy 4 seconds ahead, 10 seconds ahead. So now's just the time to ultimately do some work, get in some recovery on the downhill, and hopefully gain some of those places back. If not, at the very least, gobble up the guys that get booted out the back of the main group. So ultimately, the goal here is to bridge back to the peloton. And as we go, we start picking up riders. It started up with a 2, and then it's 4, and then it's 5, and then ultimately we get this little gruppetto of 6 that starts working together, and we work relatively well. We start coming back. We go through a lot of the little climbs that we saw before, and the strategies really don't change for you there if you're in the main group. And we get to this point here, we're at this last little climb before the final big climb, and there's the 6 of us here, and the other group's about 10 seconds ahead, and you see the feathers start going off. These guys are going to bridge. This is where they're going to make their move. We got 3 guys, and you can see they start putting down some power, and they start pulling ahead. I don't want to get totally left behind, so I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to stick with these guys. Everybody's got their feathers going. We've got Santilli, who is just hanging on there as well. I'm sitting on the back. I haven't popped anything yet. I have that arrow. Again, we're going uphill. I like to use them when we're going a little bit faster. I found it's a little bit more beneficial, but you can see things are starting to get strung out, and these guys are making their push to catch up to these other guys, which unfortunately isn't the main group. It's just another smaller group of guys that got punted out the back. So there was a couple gruppettos behind, unbeknownst to us, but you can see things are getting spread out. We're working. And I think right about now is when I decide to put in that final dig. Yeah, you can see the expression on my face. It is hurting a bit. We start pushing up. We're getting about 5 watts for a little bit. We need to make that bridge, and we're pushing. And this is when I ultimately decide to pop the arrow, I think, is just to kind of make that last little bit of the group, because I don't want to get dropped here. If I get dropped off the back end of this, it is completely over for me, and I'm not catching up. You can see it's still taking a bit to go. Those guys aren't slowing down any, and we can see with the fire wheels, we are putting in some watts. We are slowly catching up, and I'm managing to close the gap. We're getting there. We're slowly getting there, but it is a fight, and I don't have a lot of energy. There goes the arrow, and that's enough to boost. And of course, there is the power-up refresh right there. So perfect timing for that. Managed to latch on. It was a big bridge, and for me, that's an accomplishment in the race. And this gets us up to potentially 17th, 16th place in this group. So that's an improvement in standing from where I was sitting, and no time to rest. We're going to start working. So we got a tiny bit of rest until we hit the bridge, and you see the cow on your left-hand side. Now it's time to go up, and you'll start to see those percentages hit. We hit 8%. Now, Secura Summit South is 1 kilometer at an average of 3.3%. So my goal here is just to stay with the group as long as possible. I am pretty stoked because we've managed to make that bridge. We've got a larger gruppetto now. I've caught up to Peter, who I know is a better rider than me. So to see him close by, even though he did do the bike changes, I feel like that's improvement for myself. Like I said, little changes, little goals, but we see almost immediately there is a difference in the strength of people in this little gruppetto as we start to get strung out a little bit, and we can see the stronger riders like Peter are almost 2 seconds ahead very early on. And I'm just trying to hang on ultimately. I know that I just want to get to the top and not lose as many positions as I can. Right now, sitting in 23rd, I mean, it's not my best result by any stretch and see, but given that this is a climbing course and is not my forte, I feel like I'm doing all right. And push for as long as I can, get the best numbers that I ultimately can, just put in ultimately the best effort that I can do, knowing that it is pretty much inevitable that we're going to get kicked completely out and I'm probably going to end up in no man's land. So as we come down the descent, I find another rider, another dirt rider actually, and we continue to work together and we start catching up, and then he puts in this effort to get ahead to attach to the gruppetto, and ultimately I have nothing left. It's done for me. I'm pushing, but nothing's kind of coming out. I kind of know that I have reached my limit. You know, I'm stubborn, so I will continue to push as much as I can, but I know that I'm not going to make that bridge. I just don't simply have the energy as we come back into the city of Glasgow. So as we come back into the city, this is where it's going to be really important for those of you who are still racing to get a place, that are still attached to the main group. An important section of this race is coming up. We're going to make a left-hand turn and we're going to head down this street underneath this building, and then we're going to make a right, and it's going to go up and it's going to be steep. This is the stingy part of the crit, and this is where the breaks happen, and this is where your race is made. So if things are still a big group at this point, this is your last opportunity to kind of make a big difference here and get away from the group and cause a split or do whatever you're going to do. You can see there's the red marker there, and then it goes up. So it goes up, it's a little bit of a climb, and then it flattens out, and then there's that last little bit. And I'm just kind of doing what I would do normally, although I would try to push a lot higher numbers than these, is I like sprinting up this thing. You get up there that much faster because it is steep. It hits, 7, 8, 9%. And it's going to sting the legs, especially when you're doing 5, 6, 7 laps of this. But this is the end of the race. There is the last banner there. You will get another power up, so it's good to pop. Once you get through that, you're going to hit kind of a downhill. So if you are racing this point and you are pushing it, you want to push through here because there are a couple turns and people can lose sight of you. As we come down here, we're going to swing on a left-hander. There is a little bit of a climb, so you can soft pedal maybe a couple strokes, and then it's time to grin and bear it again. Put in another tough effort as you swing, and you will quickly come up this climb, and you'll see it comes up, and then it takes a right, and it kind of evens off, and then it's pretty much downhill minus one little bump that you're going to hit. So if you're going to attack and you want to stay away, that's the time to do it. If anybody sticks with you here, they're going to be stuck with you because the downhills are steep enough that you're going to really have to put in some power to get away, and it's just ultimately, in my opinion, not worth it. So this is where the games playing starts going, especially if you're doing the crit race here. But if it's going to end up in a sprint, there's going to be some gamemanship here. You're going to come down, you're going to go up, and then we're going to go through the banner that we saw at the very, very start. It's so steep coming down at negative 7%. You're just really not going to get away. If you're going to put in any kind of effort, you're not going to get that far. However, that being said, sometimes people will put in an effort here along the flat and start to push as they hit these little ups. So you see it's 3%. We come around the corner, and then there's this bump, and people will start to put in that effort. It is fairly easy to chase them down, but given that this is a longer race and who knows what you have in the tank, it might start coming down to this. And once you get around that corner, you've got 0.4 kilometers. So if you are Doom Guy, you're probably already gone. You probably started that effort exactly where I said you're going, and you are taking off, and people might be scratching their heads waiting to react. You're definitely in this last 300 meters as you go. There are definitely people sprinting just as you're coming to the corner, and it's going to be a full gas effort. You see the sprint start there. If people haven't started by then, I don't know what they're doing, but it is a bit of a long sprint. You will get to the end, and ultimately, I wish you the best in your race. You can see that we're coming across in this particular effort in 23rd. If we look at the Zwift power rankings, we see Peter finishes in 13th place. That's with a bike swap to a gravel bike and then back again to a road, an experiment that probably didn't work out, and he still managed to get those rankings. You can see that I pop in at 18th, and then we got Luigi in 20th. So we got a bunch of good guys racing during this time slot. Hopefully we'll get Alex in there at some point. But ultimately, fun race. Hopefully you have a good time racing this. I found this one really entertaining. Even though I'm not a climber, there was a lot of action going on, a lot of things to do, and I find it really, really fun. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notifications. And until next time, see ya.